Welcome back to part 2 of our wrap-up video. So like I was saying before, make sure whatever you do, do not go out and get either of these books on the art of intrusion or the art of deception, because this information is way too powerful for corrupting for anybody to read. So whatever you do, don't pick them up used on Amazon for a couple of bucks or anything. Now for the third category of threat that we're going to talk about together, sabotage or vandalism. So either just taking down your website or taking down your network, either scribbling something, some wording across your web page, or part of this is malicious between nation states. Part of it may be just hacktivism. There are, of course, lots of examples of cyber terrorism in the news. Countries that we're not at war with, but we're certainly on guard with, a heightened state of alertness with countries like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea are the obvious ones to stay up to date on. My view is this stuff we're attacking each other all the time. Sometimes it's in the news, sometimes it's not, but this is the new playing field for warfare in the 21st century. Now, with regard to hacktivism, the go-to example is Anonymous, and some of you may already be aware of Anonymous either through watching a documentary on Netflix. There are a couple of good ones there. I am surprised how many students aren't aware of Anonymous. They're still around, so let's watch a video to orientate ourselves. Okay, let's watch a little bit about Anonymous.
Online group Anonymous has threatened to release a list of influential public figures with ties to the Ku Klux Klan. The release of the list coincides with Guy Fawkes Day, whose face has been used to symbolically represent the group in a form of a stylized mask. Not unlike Guy Fawkes himself, Anonymous has been called dangerous, disruptive, and infamous. So what exactly do we know about Anonymous, and just how powerful are they? Well, Anonymous is an interesting phenomenon. While many media outlets refer to them as a concentrated group, they can be more accurately described as a loose movement. Anybody can join, and there is no central, singular representation of the group. There are certain themes more common to Anonymous members, such as internet activism and obviously anonymity. But there's no way to ascribe broad qualities to the group, and even know how many members there are. The problem with quantifying Anonymous is that there is no criteria for being a member. What we do know is that Anonymous began in the early 2000s on the image and messaging board 4chan, and naturally represented the internet's inherent ability to promote anonymous discussion. Within this framework, popular ideas gained more traction regardless of their origin. And without the negative consequences associated with being identified, the group became increasingly provocative and chaotic, touting anti-establishment values and a disruption of the status quo. They first gained attention in 2008 for organizing an online attack on Scientology. Although the attack consisted of mostly juvenile pranks like faxing black paper to their organization or making prank calls, the sheer number of contributors was overwhelming. The ability to collectively overpower a common target led to their most consistent tool, DDoS attacks. In a nutshell, DDoS, or distributed denial of service, is when a website receives more requests than it can handle, causing it to crash. Through this method, Anonymous has been able to take down websites belonging to any groups they disagree with. But of course, taking down a website is relatively inconsequential, so is Anonymous really all that powerful? Well, as the group has evolved, it has attracted members with an ability to do more than simply annoy or disrupt. The spin-off organization known as LulzSec has been implicated in hacking and releasing personal information, leading to considerably more real-world effects. Email accounts and passwords belonging to people connected to Sony Pictures and the US Senate were made public. Even the CIA's website was briefly shut down. This resulted in the arrests of several leading members of LulzSec. However, those tactics alongside existing internet activism have led to global events like the Arab Spring, which was only possible through coordinated and anonymous planning amongst a huge number of like-minded people. It might be misleading to ask how powerful is Anonymous, when what Anonymous really represents is the changing nature of collective action, vigilante justice, and communication fostered by the internet. One of Anonymous's most powerful symbols is the peculiar mask their members wear known as the Guy Fawkes mask. To learn more about the real-life man who inspired it, check out Seeker Daily's video at the top. Some might argue that Anonymous's tactics are borderline online trolling. Is that protected speech? Find out in our video down below. Thanks for watching TestTube News. Don't forget to like and subscribe for new videos.
All right. And, by the way, Guy Fawkes Day will be here before you know it, November 5th. I don't know if that's going to be on a class day or not. I'll have to look ahead. We should all come in our Guy Fawkes masks or something together. Cause a big stir. Also, that video is from 2015, so it's a couple of years old, but 4 years old. But Anonymous is still around. There are other hacktivist groups that have gotten popular. A lot of them are ones that you would want to do your careful research on with a Tor browser and a virtual machine. Let's just leave it at that. So finally, number 4, the fourth type of attack that we need to cover in Chapter 2 is simply a software attack or malware. So mal, Latin for evil. Malware is used to either overwhelm, like a Stack Overflow memory attack, or to gain access to a system that we would otherwise not have access to. So you need to be very comfortable with this language on types of malware and the differences. So in a nutshell, a virus is any piece of software that attaches to another piece of software. So the only way it can travel through a network is riding on top of, like a biological virus, attaching to a living cell. The only way it can move around the network is if that program it's attached to moves around. Contrast this with a worm. A worm propagates by itself. It spreads by itself, so a worm can be much, much more destructive. A worm is an autonomous piece of software that comes in, scans your network, looks at all the valid IP addresses, and starts replicating itself on every PC, laptop, server, tablet, phone that it can see on the network. A Trojan horse is a more specific type of malware that might come in through a phishing attack, for example. A phishing attack would be the attack vector, and then the Trojan horse might be the payload that it installs. A Trojan horse is a specific payload that's going to disguise itself as a system file. So think Windows systems file, like a DLL file, something in the system 32 folder in your program files, or just an operating system file. So it's going to be more difficult to detect. Really, the only way you can detect a lot of these files, if they're hiding themselves, is to baseline your servers in particular, and know what good looks like, know which services are supposed to be running. So if you have a new service running, that it'll either alarm you, or you're just going to eyeball it and see, because you know your servers that well, and typically sysadmins do know their servers that well. But it can be tricky because the name might be right, but the file date, the last modified date, or the file creation date are wrong, or the size of the file is wrong. So sometimes it takes a lot of detective work to figure out if it's the correct file or not. Another type of attack, I would call this a payload, that depending on the vector of attack, the vector could be, a phishing attack, or, USB stick left in the parking lot somebody puts in, any link that they click through that installs a backdoor such that a hacker can gain access later on to the network, and what results in a advanced persistent threat, APT, advanced persistent threat. I would say that this one is much more disruptive and a much greater danger than a simple virus attack. Actually, with a virus attack, we have antivirus software typically running on servers and PCs, and as long as it's not a zero-day attack, zero-day meaning it just came on the scene and there's no fix for it yet. But if it's been out there for a while, we keep our antivirus definition files up to date, it's going to catch it. But the problem is antivirus software does us no good. A bold statement, and that's intentional. If it does us very little good, because 90% of the malware attacks have no file attachments. So these phishing expeditions, these phishing emails, typically don't have an attachment that you're opening up. It's a link that they're asking you to look at. So there's nothing to scan. There's nothing for your antivirus software to scan, nothing for the server to scan, nothing for the firewall or your security appliance to scan, your email content filter to scan. There's no file. It's a fileless attack is much more typical. So the idea of even talking about viruses is getting a little old at this point. Denial of service attacks are pretty old, but still very common because they're so darn easy to do. They're so easy, I'm going to show you how to do it, which I probably shouldn't, but there you go. This is an InfoSec class. A distributed denial of service attack, a DDoS attack, is much more effective because you're getting a whole network of bot computers to attack your target. There's a couple of pictures in the book, and there are a lot of YouTube videos on this topic. I kind of like this one because the guy is such a little snotty teenager, but just one more video to show you on how to do your own denial of service attack. So here we go. Okay, this is cheesy, but it's going to get my point across how easy this is to do.
Hacks HD. This is H there for hacks. In this video, guys, I'm going to be teaching you all how to perform a DOS attack. A DOS attack stands for Denial of Service Attack. A denial of service does what the name suggests, deny service. So I'm going to close out of this notepad and teach you how to get started. This is not quality, and I will be doing advanced tutorials on how advanced users can do a more powerful attack. So basically what you're going to do is open up your start menu. If you're on Windows 7, you can just search for CMD and open up the command prompt there, as you can see. Or if you're on Windows XP, you'll go to the start menu and click Run, that should be on the side, and type in CMD here and press Enter. Or click OK. And you will pop up with this. So a few commands. Just to start, you can type title space DOS attack. This is just changing the title so it has a nice look to it. And then I'm just going to do color, let's just do B, and it'll change the color. You can change it to A, color, F, plenty of things. I'm going to do F, just stick with that, simple. So basically you're going to want to, if you want to find the IP for a website, you type in ping space the website name. In this case I'm going to do Google. I will not be doing damage because Google is a boss. So you're going to put enter and it will ping Google and it'll give you this IP back. So then once you have their IP, there are other ways to do this. In our other new tutorials I will be teaching you how to get people's IP through Skype and other things. You're going to want to type ping space the IP, the number please, 74.125.2T5.69. Then you're going to want to do space -T -L space 10,000. Basically what this is going to do is repeat -T for repeating the action over and over and over and over, so it keeps going. -L to put custom data value, so you can do more than just 32 bytes. And what you're going to want to do is set this up on probably 50 to 100 computers. I know this seems like a lot, but if you want this to be very effective, you're going to want to have a lot of computers doing this. This is the base of a DDoS attack. So you're just going to press enter, and it will start pinging. And it will continue pinging until your computer dies, or until you stop it. And to stop it, and if you want to keep this command prompt going, you're going to want to do Control-C, and that will cancel it and give you statistics about this. If your attack is working, you will notice it's saying not able to connect or no reply. So that is going to be how you perform a DOS attack. This is very simple, and if you have 100 computers, this might work. Probably not. But thanks for watching this simple tutorial. Subscribe for videos on DDoS, more DOS, advanced DOS
on
tutorials,
YouTube,
hacking in general, and also gaming and programming Python coding language. Now, time to show you how to put this in a text document, so you just have to double click and open up your DOS attacker. What you're going to want to do is exit.
Okay, let's pause there because I don't need to You can watch the rest of the video if you want on how he automates this process, but I think it gets the point across that a DDoS attack is just not even a sophisticated ping attack. It's just using the ping command with a couple of parameters at the end to send the maximum size file packet and then just repeat endlessly until you get a no reply message, which means you've been successful. Some other very common attack methods include packet sniffing, which isn't really an attack so much as just using a network diagnostic tool for evil purposes. So in 468, I teach you how to use Wireshark to capture packets out of the air, crack them open, look at them, and as long as they're not encrypted, you can see passwords, see messages that are flying over the network. So a packet sniffer is always useful in the hacker arsenal. Spoofing is just a generic term for pretending, so faking an address. So you can spoof your IP address very easily. You can spoof your MAC address, your physical address, which is burned into your card. Surprisingly, there are utilities that do this in Windows to artificially change your MAC address, the burned-in address of your network card. And in Linux, it's just a text file. You edit a file, and that changes your MAC address so that your originating IP packets and frames are even coming from a different location than where you're really at. You can also spoof cell phone numbers and phone numbers in general. That's been around for a while. And then DNS cache poisoning has to do with it's typically a payload. So whatever vector of attack I'm using to get a bit of code on your machine, if I can get in there into your DNS cache table and redirect you when you want to go to IBM.com, and instead I'm sending you to IBM.con, or actually maybe it even looks like it's IBM.com, but it's really taking you to my website, not the legitimate one, your DNS cache has been poisoned. That's a particularly effective exploit. Man in the middle is a broad category of software attack, so it has to do with any time you're inserting yourself in between transmission from point A to point B. You're the man in the middle, the person in the middle, if you will. Again, the combination of using a packet sniffer is incredibly helpful for this, and there are a lot of tools that are kind of built into Kali Linux now that accomplish this for you. We'll talk more about man-in-the-middle attacks later. There's a kind of a brief picture of how it works, but there are a lot of varieties of man-in-the-middle attacks. Finally, I just want to, you have to think not creatively, but laterally. You have to think just across the organization about everything that's a possible point of exposure. And I was kind of shocked last year when I went to a cybersecurity symposium where they said that the number one problem on anybody's network is multifunction printers. Like that is low on my radar, multifunction printers. But if you think about a multifunction printer as an IoT device now, really, that's on the network and on the internet, it's broadcasting an awful lot of protocols that are wide open. So SMTP for mail, because a lot of times you can email files to the printer for printing. SNMP, it's advertising its network diagnostic information in clear text. FTP is usually running because people want to upload files to the printer to print. HTTP for managing the printer remotely or managing the print queue remotely. And since the printer, by definition, has to be part of Active Directory, it is a shared resource on the network, so it's inside Active Directory. So if that printer gets compromised, well, that's a vulnerability in the Active Directory, which is a big, big problem. And of course, they're using Wi-Fi, they're using Bluetooth, because people want to be able to walk up with their phones and just do that to print something. Like I said in class, any IoT device is basically running a hardened kernel, hopefully hardened kernel of Linux, as a lot of these printers are from HP, Lexmark, Canon, Epson, whoever. Taking over such a printer is a great man-in-the-middle attack. who would ever find it? Who would even figure that one out? Some things you can do to mitigate this risk are using encrypted versions of protocols. So secure FTP, there's a new version of SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, version 3, that encrypts all of its diagnostic information. So it's a little harder to kind of find where these multifunction printers are on the network. But you have to watch out for so many things, so many attack vectors. It's enough to pull your hair out. So if you do have questions about any of this material, feel free to call me, email me, text me, get a hold of me before or after class. But we will be moving forward next time we see each other. And I will see you on Monday. Yeah, have a great weekend.